Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, it is Brian Kaz here, joined by my friend and business partner, Sean Casey. This is the first training for the automated ads for the special 4-week series here, where each week we'll go through a different kind of training to kind of with the hopes of by the end of the training you'll have everything you need, not only to fully understand how everything works and how to have the best ads possible out there, but also how to do stuff like manage Facebook ads for other people, how to reduce your ad costs, how to run basically different kinds of ads, as well as give you a lot of very useful resources and tools to basically just help you make more off of Facebook ads. And there's a lot of free stuff that you'll get over the course of these few weeks here, including there's a small freebie that you'll actually get access to halfway through this call as well, which we think is a cool little tool to help you out, but I'll explain more of that in just a bit here. So without further ado, we'll start with the first call right here, and this will basically be the Facebook ads setup and the 4 types of ads and strategies that you can do. So we'll be going through 4 different trainings over the next few weeks. The first one right here will basically cover the basics of how to set up and run a Facebook ad for those that are basically new, as well as talk about the 4 different types of ads and strategies that you can do. And this is good info for newbies as well as advanced users alike. So for the first bit, we'll take probably just like 10 or so minutes just to go over like the basics for those that are brand new. I know if you're experienced and have already done this, we'll zip through that pretty quick right there. And if you're brand new and you need some more extensive training or anything like that, we'll have a more in-depth walkthrough for you on that as well. But again, not too hard to start out here, so just want to give you a jump start. The second training next week will basically cover how to use automated ads to basically sell Facebook ad management. So you can use automated ads not only to create a bunch of rule sets that you can run yourself in your own ads, not only to analyze your own ads and all that, but you can use that to basically put other ads on complete autopilot. So next week we'll basically talk about not only how to sell Facebook ad management, but we'll also dive a bit more into like the rule sets and when to use each one and why. So we'll dive a bit more into that next week right there. The third training will cover more tips and tricks with basically ads and ad creatives, as well as provide you with templates based upon our best ads that you can use as well as edit. So we'll actually give you access to a handful of templates there that we'll show you how you can easily tweak and modify them. So if you're not like a graphics guy or anything like that, don't even worry. We'll show you some free resources about how you can basically tweak any of the templates within a matter of like literally, guys, within like a minute or two. I mean, if you're super slow, it might be like a few minutes, but super easy. So that will kind of give you a head start right there. And not only will we give you the templates, we'll be explaining why they work, as well as what you can do with them and what the tips and the tricks that you can do with those ads. So not just the actual graphics, but how you actually position the ad, how you run the ad, and all that stuff right there. So you'll get kind of like a full, not only behind the scenes look of all that, but you'll get the templates and all that as well right there. So that'll be a pretty exciting week. And then the fourth training will basically cover how to get more money from any buyer, as well as give you free software to help you plan out your business funnels better to maximize your profits. And this will help you regardless of where you get your sales from. So if you get your sales from Facebook, great. You can make even more money off all those buyers, which of course allows you to spend more on ads and basically grow the business even more. But even if you have buyers from outside of Facebook, the software that we'll give you for free then will also help you kind of learn how to maximize your sales and maximize your profits off of those guys as well. And this is a cool way to, in some cases, potentially even double your sales without having to get any more buyers or anything like that. So pretty cool training, and I think this is a very important one that can like make or break a lot of businesses and stuff. So pretty cool stuff, and all these combined really will give you kind of, I think, the best ammunition to start, with your businesses, whether you're brand new, whether you have an existing business, to really grow it more and more through Facebook ads and using automated ads. And keep in mind that this is all on top of extra trainings that we'll be basically releasing over time, more tutorials as we add more features and so forth. Because again, you guys are among the first in. So we'll be adding more and more features as time goes on, and we'll be releasing more walkthroughs and tutorials, as well as we'll be listening to your feedback and stuff. And if there's certain areas that you want some more training on, or certain stuff that you're a little confused on, we'll definitely turn those into more trainings or more walkthroughs and stuff like that. So if you get lost at any point, or if there's stuff that you think is confusing, or stuff that you think we could explain a little better, or stuff that you think we could basically teach a little more on, by all means, let us know, and we'll be happy to do so. Now, if you have any questions, any suggestions, feature requests, so on and so forth, we want to hear from you. And you can email us at support@firstratesupport.com. Again, that's just support@firstratesupport.com. So make sure you use that. That will help go straight to our help desk right there, and we're here to help with any questions you have, as well as, again, if you have any suggestions, anything that you think could be cool to learn more about, any feature requests of the software itself, or if you need help with the software or anything like that, again, let us know. That's what we're here for, and we'll always get back to you very, very fast and promptly on that as well. I mean, they'll always get back to you within one business day or less. I mean, usually they'll get back to you within like one to 2 hours, as long as you're like writing during normal business hours, not like three in the morning when we all would be asleep. But yeah, so all good. So I have 2 questions for all of you, and you can help by basically typing the number of the response in the little chat box. So my question is, first one is, what best describes your current use of Facebook advertising? You can type in a 1 if you currently advertise on Facebook. You can type a 2 if you advertised on Facebook in the past but not currently. Or you can type in a 3 if you've never advertised on Facebook before. So again, you would type a 1 in the chat box if you currently advertise on Facebook, a 2 in the chat box if you've advertised in the past but not currently, or a 3 if you've never advertised before. All right. Thanks for that right there. And one last question before we start right here. How many of you have already integrated your Facebook account with automated ads? You can type in a 4 if you already integrated it. You can type in a 5 if you haven't integrated it. Or you can type in a 6 if you're thinking, what the heck do you mean by integrating it? Which means you probably haven't logged in yet. So if you log into automated ads, one of the first things it will prompt you to do will be to integrate your Facebook account, which is how it's basically able to pull all the info from your ads and all that right there. Obviously, if you're brand new, you might not have done that yet. We're just basically curious how many of you here on this call have done that. So if you could type in a 4, 5, or 6, that will just basically give us some feedback to help kind of adjust future trainings and stuff based upon what we see or what you might need more help with. All right, thanks for all that. So what I'm going to do right now to start is I'm going to basically quickly go over the basic steps of setting up an ad account for those that are brand new. And we'll also release kind of a walkthrough of this later as well. So like, if you're brand new, again, there's tons of training out there on like how to set up a Facebook account, how to set up, a business manager account, how to, set up your first ad. There's lots of stuff out there on that. But for those that, I know there's a few of you that are brand new to that. This is just like a quick walkthrough of that. We could spend literally like days on just this, but I won't do that because I know we want to get to like the nitty-gritty of the rest of the stuff that will help you out a lot more in the long run. But we'll also release a walkthrough of this as well for those that need it. I just want to spend maybe like 5 to 10 minutes to go over a few things here. And it might help even if few of you that have some existing ones on what some of my thoughts are on when I create the ads and whatnot. So the first step, you have to create a Facebook page. So before you create like a business manager account, which I'll recommend you do in a second here, you want to create a Facebook page for whatever you're basically selling. If you go to Facebook and you click the little arrow thing on the top right, you'll see basically a drop down where you can click on create page. So we want to create that, and it'll basically walk you through a few things. We'll ask like, what kind of page is it for? Do you sell like, essentially products, yada yada. You can add in some info about the page or the picture. I mean, don't think too hard about it. If you don't want to spend a little time making one, and again, it's not hard, you can make a basic one with barely any info in like a matter of a minute. But if you want to make like a fancy one, you can go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. You can pay a guy $5 to make you a basic Facebook page. So don't overthink that at all there. Second step is you'll want to, especially if you're going to manage Facebook ads for other people, or if you're going to do like a lot of advertising yourself, you want more than just a personal account. So you'll want to create a business manager account by going to business.facebook.com and then following the instructions there. So you'll need your Facebook page first before you go there, which is why this is step 2 right here. But again, you'll just go to business.facebook.com and you'll follow the instructions there. It's like super easy, super laid out, step by step right there. And you'll create the business manager account right there. After you do that, you can create more ad accounts and such, or you can create your first ad account. It'll walk you through it initially, but if you created a business manager account and haven't basically done the rest yet, you just click on the top left inside of the business manager account where you see the little lines in the very, very top left. Then you click on Ads Manager, and you'd go to something like this right here where you just pick the ad account that you're working on. If you just made this, you'd probably only have one ad account. If you had a bunch of them, you'll see a drop down on the top left right there. So you just pick the ad account that you want to start with, and then that's how you start making the ads and so forth. And we'll jump into that in just a minute right here. And the fifth step is you'll then want to create your first ad on your ad account. And you can get to all of your ad accounts in the future in your business manager, again, at business.facebook.com. That's where it will list all your ad accounts and all that right there, including if you manage for other people, it will list that right there. And again, I'll walk you through the first few steps right here, and then we'll jump into the nitty gritty on the different kinds of ads and the strategies and methods and the pros and cons of each one. So I'm just going to pause it just for maybe a few minutes right here as I switch over screens to kind of do like a walkthrough of setting up the very first ad. And don't be like concerned or super worried. If you're brand new, I'll show you how this can be super easy. If you're experienced, I promise this will only take like a few minutes of your time before we go into some stuff that will be basically much more beneficial to you. But I'll show you an example of one that I made years and years and years ago. That was probably one of like, I won't say the crappiest ad I've ever made, but it literally was one that was made in like minutes and made thousands of dollars, selling something just by drop shipping essentially. So I'll show off that as well as show like the steps that you would do to start with, and then later on some of the future calls and stuff, I'll show more of like exactly the tips and tricks that I use in making an ad, what I change on the templates and all that, and I'll actually give you guys the templates that you can change up so you can really get the most out of any ads that you run right there. But I just want to make sure that you're all basically caught up with the basics right here. So just going to pause the screen for a second as I do the walkthrough right here. Alrighty. All right. All right. So right here, this is where after you've gone through those steps, you'll see a place where you can start making ads. So this is the last screenshot that we left off on. This is a new account, or I should say an old account, but I haven't used it yet. So this will be for the sake of the demo right here. And the first thing you'd want to do is to create a campaign itself. So you just click the green little create button right here. And you can say whatever you want. That's just like you'd be the only one that would see that. There's a couple different buying types. Sometimes, usually, typically most of you would only see the auction right here, so you leave that there. For the campaign objective, this is where there's several different things. The default they usually have as essentially traffic. I don't like that as much. I would usually go to conversions, which basically means your objective is to do something like a lead or sale. If you just want a bunch of traffic and you don't care about the rest, by all means, you can leave it at traffic. If you want it to be like, something else like, the total amount of reach, which is the amount of people that see your ad, you can change up that. There's pros and cons to each one, but for like the vast majority of you, you'd have this be at conversions. And if you're thinking to yourself, am I one of those exceptions? You would not be. You would be at conversions. So there's some other stuff that's a bit more advanced that some people sometimes get at, but again, I think for 99% of you, you want to focus on conversions there. For the vast majority, probably like 99% our own stuff, that's what we do as well right there. Then after that, you'd create an ad set. Let's call this test ad set. That is basically something that holds a bunch of different ads in it, or basically from anywhere from one ad to as many ads as you want. You can have multiple ad sets within a campaign. Every ad set can have multiple different budgets. So we'll just leave it at that. And then for the ad itself, I'll say test ad. Then I'll just click save. And there's also too, if you want to be essentially guided to it, like Facebook has like walkthroughs on all that as well. I would just make sure, like, if they try to get you to go for basically traffic, I would discourage you from that and go to conversions instead. And I'll talk about the only thing you have to watch out for is that you have to add a little bit of code to your page for conversions, like either on your landing page or the sales page or both, so it can track when there's a lead or when there's a sale. But the good news is, if you're not a techie, after I show this off, I'll actually give you a resource of a free tool that we're actually giving you that can help actually do that for you. So I won't actually walk through how to do the tech side of that, because we make it super easy with the tool. If you already know how to do that, great. If not, or if you want an easier way, we'll give you a free tool to help with that. And I won't bother going through the instructions of how to get that, because we already have that in the free tool right there. So I'll click save. And we see some basic stuff right here. We can, this is basically just on the campaign itself. If we click one down right here, we'd go to the ad set. Or if we actually close this, I can show you just if you want to. If we close this, you can actually see it all from right here too. So your campaign's right here, your ad set's right here, and your ad that you haven't made is right there. We just click on the edit button right here. We'll go back into the campaign. And because we don't have our pixels set up here, because this is brand new, you wouldn't see anything here. Once your pixel's installed, this would show up as green, and you'd want to, like, the three main pixels you want to focus on are view, which is when someone lands on your page, and then also lead, which they make it like super hard to scroll. I'll just type in lead. Lead right there, as well as purchase. Obviously, a purchase will be if they make a sale, a lead would be if there's just someone that opts in, and a view would be just if they view the main page right there. So typically you'd want your objective to be either the purchase or the lead, and we'll get into the finer details of which one you'd want to basically be for what in just a bit, because it actually depends upon the ad type that you're doing. In most cases, though, if your price point is less than basically $20 or so, in almost all cases, you'd want the optimization to be the purchase. If your purchase price is like super expensive, like let's say you're selling like a $5,000 package, unless you have a massive budget of like hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you have like tons of prior sales, you'll typically want initially the conversions to be leads, where you gather the leads and try to sell them from there. Because if you don't have any sales, where let's say you make a sale once a month, there's not much to optimize off of. But if you get like a handful of leads a day, there's a lot more info that they can optimize off of, and you can get cheaper and cheaper leads and such. So you'd fill out that right there, and then you'd select essentially your budget right here. You can choose if you want a daily budget or a lifetime budget. For most people, I recommend a daily budget. Now, of course, it doesn't mean every day you have to spend that much. You can basically pause these at any point in time. There are rule sets within automated ads that can like essentially pause and run all that stuff based upon certain actions. And we'll dive a bit more into that next week when we'll look specifically at the rule sets and such. But basically do whatever you're comfortable with to start with. I don't recommend any less than $5, and in that case, you'd probably be doing like either super cheap stuff or like optimizing for leads. But I think if you go in basically like the $20 range or so, that is a decent amount to start with to get more data faster. I myself, usually if I'm trying to test something new, I'll have it at least like $100 or so just to get results faster. But if you're not comfortable with that, by all means, by all means, do not have it more than what you want right there. Then this is where you would create, if you have a custom audience, you can add those in here. And that's basically where if you have a bunch of existing buyers, you can, or if you have like, and we'll get into some details later, and we'll release some like links and resources on like what's what later. But essentially, you can add what's called like a lookalike audience, which is like where if you have like, let's say you have 1,000 buyers or even 100 buyers that bought your stuff in the past, you can actually upload those to Facebook and tell Facebook to create a lookalike based upon that. And then they'll try to basically target everyone else on Facebook that looks like that person right there. If you're brand new, you'd probably leave that blank to start with if there's absolutely nothing, because there's nothing to basically optimize on yet. Then, of course, you can scroll down and start with the locations and stuff. You can choose if you want to do it just in the US or in the UK or wherever you want. I recommend if you have a global market, definitely try to maybe target like first world places first. Because like oftentimes you'll find if you target everything, you'll get like a lot of cheap leads and a lot of cheap clicks from a lot of countries that you'll never get a buyer from. Like, for instance, I've basically tested this in the past, and I've seen like a lot of guys basically brag about this, where they'll say, hey, I get 5-cent leads versus like $2 leads or so, and they'll be getting leads from Nigeria of basically people that barely speak any English. That have no intention of buying, and congratulations, you got some cheap leads, but you won't make any money off that. So make sure to add those in right there. You can select any age range you want right here. If you're starting out and you're brand new, I recommend basically going with essentially the default, which is everyone to start with. Later on, you'll start to get some data, and you'll see like, oh, gee, it looks like mostly only men or women are basically buying this, or oh geez, it looks like mostly only women from 40 to 50 are buying this. So you can start to change it later, but unless you're absolutely sure of like what the age of your market is, I would leave that blank, because I've seen, like, more times than not, I've seen a lot of people that assume they know what the age of their market is, and it turns out to be the complete opposite. I've even seen some that, like, they assume that their target market is women, and in the end it turns out to be men. Or they assume that their target market is, like, you know, men in their 20s, and it will be like men like in their 60s. So there's some really weird stuff. So I'd say, like, unless you're absolutely sure, and even then I'd question you, I would leave it at essentially the default to start with, and then later kind of change that down right there. You can also choose if you want to have it only be English. So let's do that to start with right there. And then typically, if you have a lookalike audience, you'd want to leave, or I find that if you leave the targeting blank, you'll tend to get, like, basically cheaper clicks, leads, and sales. But if you don't have a lookalike to start with, or you don't have anything to base it off of, you can choose some basic targeting right here. So, like, let's say, like, one of the things that we've sold in the past, and I'll show an example of, were basically bumper balls. They're like giant balls that you stand inside and then you run into each other on. And one of the things that we found was, hey, some of the people that were basically buying were those that liked soccer. So we could type in, like, soccer and you know, find, you know, all sorts of things right here, and we could pick you know, like maybe association football or soccer, that or, you know, whatever we think would make the most sense for us right there. I probably would want to find, like, some association that means, like, they're playing soccer or something like that. You know, so you can of course do whatever you want, but we'll just pick this for right now. You could add, like, more, and then of course you can exclude and narrow it down. And for the first time through, if you're brand new, I'd recommend having automatic placements, which basically places it everywhere, and leaving the default right there. You can change the stuff later, but again, if you're brand new to start out, I would leave it at that. And it won't let us continue because we don't have a conversion event to start with, but we'll just leave it at that right there. All right. Then after that, we'd go to the next step, which should be going to the ad itself, which we can get to right here by basically clicking here, or on this back screen, we can click on the tab where it says ads and go right there. And this is the ad that has, like, the actual graphic and all that stuff right there. And this is where we'd pick essentially the page first that we want it to show on. So you hopefully have your page right here. If you have multiple pages, you have it right there, and you pick that. And you can choose if you want to have the ad as an image or as a video, or there's a bunch of options here. Usually, if you're starting out, I just have it as the default, which is the ad with the image or a video. And as far as which one, simple image or a video, if you're brand new, I would start with a simple image, just because it's easier to test to start with than create, like, you know, a video. Over time, you want to definitely basically do both those and test both those right there. And again, super easy. And I'll just show you, like, a simple one that I made. This is like an old one. It's one of, like, the crampiest ones I've ever made, but it was, like, super easy, and it actually sold. So I'll show this right here. This is one that I did for a bumper ball, or essentially like a bubble or like a bumper ball. And all I did was I grabbed an image. I went to a site like AliExpress, where you can find all sorts of stuff that you can drop ship. I thought, hey, that looks kind of cool right there. You can add any image you want. And this is like the exact same screen you just saw, just that you know, has some stuff filled out right there. So you could add any image you want right here. So when you click on the image button, of course, you can change all that. You see there's some other stuff we've had here, like some VR things and some lasers and all sorts of stuff right there. You can choose to search through stock images, or you can choose to add your own in, just upload them right here. or you can also search through the stock on Facebook itself. So let's say you're selling like soccer stuff. If you didn't have an image of it, or if you had like basically a course on how to get better at soccer, you could look through and find all sorts of images that you can use for free right there as well. After that, you'd scroll down here, and this is where you would add in the text and all that stuff right there. And you can see an example that you see. This is a very, very basic one that I made years ago that, again, despite it being like not all that great, again, it actually sold thousands of dollars worth right there. You would add whatever text you want right here. You'd add the website that you'd want people to go to once they click right there. Usually the display I'd keep the same. You don't have to. That's like if you want like a shorter version right there. You have a headline that shows up right here, and that's basically it right there. So pretty easy stuff. You can ignore most of the tracking info for right now. Then you just click essentially publish and make sure that you have your payment info in, and you would be set. So obviously you'd have to add like a credit card in the first time, but that's the basics of all that you'd have to do right there. Now, this ad itself would not be the best of ads, and that's why on one of the future calls, we'll have a call completely devoted to how to have the best ads possible, what to change in the ad copy to get the most clicks and all that. This is since those of you that need like a walkthrough like this, probably haven't done one in the past. I wanted to show off like one of the first ones that I made a long time back. Just to see, hey, it doesn't have to be super fancy to start with, but on a later call, we'll show the tips and tricks of how we, run some of our seven-figure businesses and what the ads are and stuff that we have, or essentially the templates of those and how those work and why. So that's what you do to start with, and you'd be set right there. And again, there's lots of videos, lots of trainings, on YouTube and such, and on like how to set up the basics. Facebook also does a really good job of walking through the basics of it, so it doesn't have to be too hard to get up and running right there. But the more important part is like, what are the different kinds of ads? What should you do? How should you advertise? And that's why we're about to kind of jump into that right there in a second. Just going to pause the screen as I go back to the slides. All right, and as I mentioned, some useful resources. Here's a free tool that we actually made for you guys that you get free access to. It's for basically adding Facebook pixels if you want to track conversions like views, leads, and sales and all that. I wouldn't say I'm a techie, but like I know how to add like a pixel in and stuff, but even I find this like much more easier to use this than to basically do it by hand. But it's add.pixelplacer.com. You don't have to buy anything. It's all free. It's all right there. And that's a free tool that we made for you guys to use, and it literally walks you through how to add a pixel in, and it helps actually do it for you right there. Another useful resource, which is free, it's not owned by us, it's just a free resource. There's some paid options too. It's canva.com. That's for basically editing ads and doing graphics and stuff. So like if you want to add some fancy text to like a graphic of yours, you can upload a graphic and add some text. Or if you want to start from scratch and make a graphic from scratch, you can basically pick from a variety of stock images there. A lot of them are free. Some will have like, I think like $1 charge if you use like certain stock images. So you can create either like a free image or like a super, super cheap one, or even a custom one, which would be free, of course, too, of yours. Right there. So that's another useful resource. But on a future training, we'll actually, when we give you the templates of a lot of the ads that we use, we'll actually show you how to change that on the canva.com site and how to easily do all sorts of stuff there. So just want to give you that ahead of time for those that want to jump ahead with that. Now, we'll actually jump into the 4 main ad types and the strategies and when you want to use each one right there. And I'll actually go through these in detail and say when to use each one and what the tips and tricks are for those. So this is just to give you an idea of what you can choose from to start with. So one is the straight to sales page, which is basically where you send the traffic straight to a sales page of whatever you're selling. The second one is basically an opt-in or a landing page where you send them to a page to capture their lead first. The third one is either like a content blog post or like an article. That's where you have an ad that's basically advertising basically an article, like a news piece or something like that, and we'll talk a bit about that in a second. And the last one is video training, or basically content in the ad itself, essentially training. This is where the ad itself basically is where you have your content. And these have a very good chance of going viral if done right, but there's some pros and cons there. And again, I'll explain each one by one. So the first one is the straight to sales page. This is what a lot of people do by default, which there's some cases where you'd want to. It's not what I recommend for most, but you can. There are instances where this could be ideal. This is where you have an ad that goes straight to a sales page or an affiliate page offer. So if you're selling, like, let's say Siberian Husky mugs, okay, you might have an ad that goes straight to a Siberian Husky mug. And in a case like that, that could be a good straight sales page offer right there. It's good for some low price products. Typically, if it's less than basically like the $20 range or so, which is what I call basically impulse buy. If it's much more than that, you tend to lose like a lot of sales and like a lot of traffic. So you're basically paying for a lot of views that don't turn into money. And I'll share with you a method that I think can work in cases like that in just a minute. This is good for testing to see if you can even get buyers first. So like if like, let's say you have like a $5 product you're selling and you have zero clue, if there's even a market there, you could just do a straight to sales page first just to see like what's up, and if there's any hope of getting buyers. Whereas like if you spend a chunk of money and no one's buying a super cheap thing, that might be a sign that there might not be a market there, or that might not be the best products there. Typically the ad is super simple and usually just advertises the product in question. So if you're selling a Siberian Husky mug, like a coffee mug that has like a picture of a dog on it, you would have basically an ad of the mug itself and say, hey, look at this cool Siberian Husky coffee mug, and you'd have it go straight to the page that's selling the Siberian Husky mug. So it's a super simple, super targeted one, where usually if you're selling something like that, you would sell maybe by targeting those that like Siberian Huskies or something along those lines right there. And you could go straight to the sales page knowing that you'd probably have it's not only very, very relevant, but a decent chunk might basically go on to buy that mug right there. The downside of these kinds of ads is that you'll get a lot less leads, because you'll get like a lot of views, but not all those views will turn into buyers. So you're throwing away a lot of leads that potentially you could sell stuff to later. Now you could retarget them on Facebook, but as far as the email leads go, you're leaving a lot of leads on the table. The plus side is you might get more that actually buy, that see the actual offer, but you're leaving leads on the table. But not a bad option for like the impulse purchase prices of basically $20 or less. The other option, which I often find that I like this one more in a lot of cases, not in all cases, but this is one of my favorite ones right here, is the opt-in or the landing page. This goes to an opt-in or landing page to basically grab leads first. The key is to be super simple with a super short call to action, nothing fancy. The fancier you get, the longer you get. Like 9 times out of 10, I find it just lowers conversion rates. And you want to give something like some free info or a super awesome deal in exchange for their email or lead info. You can even do like a free plus shipping offer, And instead of having it go straight to like a sales page, where like, let's say you sell like something that you can basically drop ship for, let's say $1, and you sell it for free plus $5 for shipping and handling. You could have it so it goes to like an opt-in page first, and it goes, hey, enter your email here to see if this deal is still available. Something along those lines where you get some leads first, but you have to have like a super simple offer and super simple call to action first. And you don't want like a really long opt-in page. In most of those cases, just super short and sweet with an easy offer where really you want one sentence that sums up your entire offer and why they should give you their email address. Then after they opt in, you can then show them the main offer or a series of upsells. This can be used for high-end products and services where you get the lead first and then send them to a webinar. So again, there's multiple ways that you could gather leads first. It can go straight to like a main offer. It can go to a handful of upsells. It can go to like a webinar or like a replay. That's more like if it's like a high-end one, having it go to like the webinar is a good way to get sales. And it's also important to gather the leads first, because if you're selling it on like a webinar, let's say you're selling like $1,000 item, unless you have like something like absolutely insane, even then, it's not like a lot of people walk off the street and say, hey, I'm going to spend $1,000 now. They typically need to think about it or need to be convinced a bit more. So they need more time, or they need more of like a demo or something. So that's why a webinar is good for them to basically view, but you need to gather that lead first, so then you can market to them later. You can send them some additional emails. You can remind them of a special deal pricing or like a countdown or something along those lines, right there. And then that's why why that can work well is because you basically get a bunch of leads, and then you have those leads that you can market anything you want to later, but you can also send them straight to like the webinar replay and all that right there. Now, typically when you have like an opt-in or like a landing page offer, you want the ad to focus on a super simple call to action to get the lead. Like for instance, if I was selling, like let's say I was selling, I don't know, a $500 course on some advanced tips and tricks on how to do Facebook ads. I wouldn't just say, hey, opt in to see my offer to get you to spend $500. I'd say, hey, into your email below to see 3 of my best tips for, basically cutting your ad costs in half, or something along those lines right there, where it's like, a lot of people say, oh, that's a pretty good incentive. I would definitely like to cut my ad costs in half in exchange for an email. That's not bad, and it's free. And then after they do that, that's when you can present them with a handful of upsells or like an additional offer or anything you want right there to try to monetize them at that point right there. Now, the downside of this method is that you'll lose some people who'll never see your offer, as they don't want to give their info out. So there are obviously, like, any opt-in page out there, a lot of people don't opt in. A fairly good opt-in rate, depending upon the market, might be like a 1/4 to a 1/3. Some really good ones might be like half or more. But even if you take, like, let's say a 1/3, that means like 2/3 of them are being left on the table. Now, a lot of people get concerned about that, and they don't do the opt-in form then. And I think that's not in all cases, but I think that's often a mistake, because they're assuming that like 2/3 of the people that don't see the offer would be interested in it. But on the flip side is, if you don't give your email out to see some relevant stuff for free or some relevant offer for free, you're probably far less interested in almost anything that they're selling as well. And on the flip side, if you get those leads of even the 1/3 or so, you can market to those guys down the line. And when you get them to take some kind of action first, they're more likely to follow up with additional actions with you later, such as buying stuff. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The third way, or the third kind of ad or thing to essentially promote is what I call essentially the content, blog post, or like an article. So this is where you have an ad that basically goes to a blog post or an article, typically where you basically provide them with relevant info based on what you're later trying to sell them. This can get super cheap clicks. So like any kind of like a news article or like anything like that typically will get very cheap clicks, especially compared to like a straight sales page or to like an opt-in page. But you have to do a good job of making it relevant, engaging, and a good call to action as well, or a lead grab to really make it worthwhile. For instance, you know, if you get super cheap clicks, but you don't do a good job of turning those clicks into leads or getting those leads to see an offer of yours in that article, you're wasting a lot of money there, and your per lead cost or your per sale cost might be even more high than if you sent them to like an opt-in page or a sales page. But if you can find a good way to basically take advantage of the cheap, you know, leads or the cheap clicks, you know, you can oftentimes get some cheap leads and sales off that as well. This is also, it gives you a chance of having that go a bit more viral, because oftentimes people are more likely to share a piece of content than they are a sales page. Like, let's say, you know, and you know, if you think of this like a normal user, if let's say I had a product that helped get rid of rodents, let's say, okay, and like if I had a sales page that just said, hey, buy my rodent distractor for $50, you know, some people might share that, a lot won't. But if I have an article that's like, you know, hey, here's some tips and tricks to, you know, get rid of, you know, rodents and stuff in your garden, and I basically target people who like to garden, they'd be more inclined to share that, because they're like, hey, they're not sharing sales stuff, they're just sharing some useful content that people might find basically interesting. Or if I had like, let's say I was selling, you know, a marketing course, and I had, you know, like a free article on, hey, these are 3 ways to reduce your ad spend or your click costs or lead costs or anything like that, people would be more likely to share that with the relevant market, because again, it's a free article. It's not like you're being asked to buy anything. Now, here's a couple examples. So if you're selling an accounting service, you could write an article on the 3 things businesses are doing wrong and costing them a lot of money with the latest, you know, let's say Trump, you know, essentially tax changes. So, you know, there's a lot of businesses, or there's a lot of businesses out there that are like confused. They don't know what's what. They don't know like what will help them or hurt them. So if like you were to target business owners and had like, you know, let's say an article on, hey, these are the 3 things a lot of businesses are doing wrong and costing them a lot of money, with the latest, you know, with the latest changes in the Trump tax laws, and here's how you can fix them, that's likely to get like a lot of clicks. And then within the article, after you give them all that info, you can have a call to action, like, you know, at the very end, you know, you can say, hey, this was brought by like an expert, or this like accounting expert, and say, hey, if you want a free consultation on how they can help your business with these 3 things, as well as a dozen additional things that can save you a fortune, you know, feel free to reach out to us right here. So that's the kind of thing where you have the free info, but you have a call to action as well, where they're inclined to say, hey, I got some useful info here, I learned some good stuff, I don't know how to do it myself, and I want to learn about this extra stuff, so sure, I'll follow through. Whereas if you just had a simple opt-in page or simple sales page that I said, hey, you know, click here to hire our, you know, accounting services, you're not nearly as inclined to click through and do that as if you were, you know, learn some useful info first, and then later you're like, wow, I guess I really do need this. So that's where this can work. Another example is if you're selling, like, let's say an exercise program or like a course, you can have a blog post on the easiest life hack that can make you lose X amount of weight in 2 weeks. And then within that article, mention how that's just one of several hacks in a course by this guy who wrote the article, and how they can check out some, let's say some like additional tips for free by signing up to his list right here, which would be a great way to turn like those cheap clicks into some leads there. Now, the downside with these kinds of ads is that you'll get cheap clicks typically, but the ad that you have lives and dies by whether or not the call to action and the relevancy is good or not. So typically, like any article or blog post will usually get you like very cheap clicks, especially compared to like a sales page or like an opt-in page in the same niche for like the same essentially target. But you have to do a very good job of making sure that your call to action is good and that the content itself is relevant and people would really want that, and they'd be like likely to possibly share that, and the call to action you have is something that they would really be enticed to follow through on. Now, the last one here is video training, or basically content in the ad itself. So it doesn't have to be a video, but this is where you have either a video training in the ad itself, or even just the content you want to give out in the ad itself instead of on a blog. So you basically have like a very long essentially post on Facebook, which you turn into the ad itself, or you have the video, which you give out basically some content on Facebook itself. Now, the pro here is you can get super cheap views here, so it can be a good way to get a lot of exposure, and you have a greater chance of making it go viral because you don't have to go off of Facebook to see that. Essentially, people can just click the like watch the video or read the actual ad itself to get all the info that they want. But you absolutely must have a good call to action though. So like after the training or at the end of the post, you have to have some way for them to reach out to you or some kind of action that you want them to take. And this can be a great option for high-end coaching sales or other products and services that are higher priced, where you might have to warm them up first. And in cases like that, you definitely want to retarget them, which is where like you see everyone that has watched X amount of the video, or like everyone that has like clicked and read that. You want to retarget them with some additional info, so you can kind of brand your name or your brand or your product and be everywhere where they basically look. Now, why this can work is because like let's say you're selling a course on how to improve your tennis game, and you target everyone that likes let's say essentially tennis, or that likes maybe like a tennis association or something along those lines right there. You can have like, let's say, a video on hey, this is how you can add 15 miles an hour to your serve with this simple little let's say adjustment. And you have the video where you're showing the simple adjustment. There's a lot of value in the video itself. A lot of the tennis players like, oh man, this is like pretty neat. This has some training right here. They're far more likely to share that because like, oh yeah, there's some cool stuff right here. And at the end of the video, in that case, you could say for some additional tips on how to add an additional maybe 20 to 30 miles more on top of your serve, as well as to learn how to add more power to your forehands and backhands or volleys or whatever. Click right here. But on top of that, if someone watched the entire video, that they're probably a fairly warmed up lead there. They probably liked whatever you had because they watched it the whole way through, and you could have some additional videos and stuff like, hey, here's how you can add more power to your forehand, and you can target them with that, and then at the end of that have a call to action where they can learn how to do a couple more things to add even more speed or to do even more stuff there. And that can be a great way to kind of warm up a lot of people and get them to share stuff. Or if you're selling, like let's say you're selling like a $10,000 package, you typically can't just send guys to like a sales page and say, hey, buy my $10,000 coaching. I mean, it might work occasionally, but not typically not likely. But if you had some training like, hey, Here's how I took one business from $6,000 a month to $500,000 a month, and here's the 3 things that we did to help with that. And I shared the exact training and all that there, and then at the end of it saying, hey, if you think that this would be useful for a business like yours, feel free to reach out to me right here. That's a very soft call to action right there, but it gets a lot of people enticed, it gets a lot of people excited, and then reaching out to you. So that's the way to get some very cheap views and stuff on your ads right there. Now, the downside is if you don't have a good reason for them to check you out after watching the video or to pay attention to you, you'll have a popular video or basically an ad without any sales. Like if you had a really awesome video on how to hit a harder serve, but then you don't have any call to action later or like anything for them to do after that, you might have super cheap views and a lot of people that share it and love it, but you're not really turning that into money. So you want to always have some kind of call to action tied to those right there. So with that, we're almost at the end of the hour here. So if you guys have any questions or suggested features for the software that you'd like to see, let us know. Next week we'll basically spend some of the time where we'll kind of go through the software itself. We'll go through automated ads. We'll talk more about when to use certain kinds of rule sets and why, as well as how to, if you want to manage Facebook ads for basically others, how to get those leads, how to make those sales, and how to actually manage the ads themselves within automated ads. And then after that week, we'll have a training on specifically tips and tricks with the Facebook ads that you make. We'll give you the templates and we'll explain why each one works well and how you can modify and tweak them. We'll show up how to easily do that, and how to make really good looking ads, and how to get the best response possible off those ads. And then after that, we'll have a week where you'll have some free software that will help you kind of plan out and make all of your buyers worth a lot more. And we'll basically talk about tips and tricks to get a lot more money off of any buyers that you have. And this can literally double your business overnight for basically doing this, which allows you to obviously spend more on Facebook and kill your competition that way on and off of Facebook as well. And of course, if there's any questions you have or anything that you need some help with or any suggestions or any features you'd like to see or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us at support@firstratesupport.com and we'd be happy to help. So I'm just going to pause this for a second as I go and see if there's any questions. And Sean, I know you've been on. If there's any questions or anything that you've seen, feel free to chime in as well as I go through and see what people are asking here.
Sure. Brian's asking, he's waiting for his ad account to populate the software, and I'm not sure what that means. If you've authorized your account, your automated ads account to access your Facebook ads, I mean, it's like seconds to do that integration. So I'm not sure how you're stuck.
Yeah. So with that, if you literally just integrated it, it should.
Oh no, he's saying it's since Sunday. So and there's no way that should be. It's instant.
Yeah, it should be basically almost instant. And on its own too, the software will basically check, within a day for like any like prior data and stuff, and it will integrate that. So if you don't have any of that, there's one thing I do to start with. Make sure that you're looking at the right ad account, because like sometimes if you have multiple ad accounts or even old ones that you forgot you had, you might be accidentally selecting the wrong one. And then second, if you're using like the analysis tool, make sure that the date range is when you actually had some actual live ads. So like if you have let's say if you have the date range in like the past month, but you ran ads like 2 or 3 months ago and nothing in the past month, you won't get any data there. So make sure you do those obvious things first, just in case. And then if you're still stuck on that, just reach out to support@firstratesupport.com, and they can help you out right there. So yeah, let me just check on one thing real quick. All right, so let's see. All right, other questions? Do Larry, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. We never we never talked about Google Ads, so I think you might be mistaken. But yeah, but you certainly can. I mean, if you're like brand new, and like you've never even like set up a Facebook account or like a Facebook ad or anything like that. Facebook walks you through all that like step by step very, very easily. But we'll also release kind of like a walkthrough for you on that. But you can just go to YouTube and also look at like exactly step by step how to do all that stuff right there. So it's very easy to get a Facebook ad account live, which is why we spent just like a little time on that right here. Okay. All right, so Derek asks here, he has a software that he's looking to sell at about 97 pounds a month. He just wants to know like what advice we'd have to help sell that. Well, a few things. First, you could do an ad that is like, I mean, there's like a few ways you could actually go about this. One is you could do an ad saying it could be like a content ad or like a video ad on like let's say ways to, let's say, charge more and sell more with like just a few easy tweaks. And then your advice could essentially be, hey, if you send like all your traffic to like a normal sales page, you lose out on like a lot of conversions, you lose out on a lot of sales, and it's usually very hard to sell a high priced product. Whereas if you sell like let's say a $1,000 product or a $5,000 product, usually you'll get much higher conversions off of a webinar. Here's what that does, here's how this works, yada yada. But the downside of that is usually it takes a lot of time to like run all these live calls and blah blah blah. But if you use some special software like this right here, you can automate that whole thing very, very quickly and easily, where you can turn any video or any replay or anything you want into what appears to almost look like a live webinar, if that's what you're selling, because in this case, it looks like you're selling the webinar software. So that's what I would probably do to test with to start. You could also like try, like, let's say you wanted to test like a smaller budget. Instead of selling it straight for like 97 pounds a month, you could try to do like a free trial just to see like what the lead cost is. And knowing that if someone sets up a webinar in your system, they're likely going to stay there. All right. And yes, we will have a replay of this, and it will be posted up within a day. So probably later today or tomorrow morning at the latest, we'll have it in a training area for you, and we'll make an announcement on that. All right. All right. Yep, and it looks like Bryant looks like support already wrote back to you, so it looks like you must have missed that. So make sure to check your spam just in case right there. Alrighty. All right, I think we answered all the questions right there. And again, if you're having any issues at all, just write support@firstratesupport.com. And if you'll always receive a reply within 1 business day. If by chance you don't, I mean, usually within like a couple hours. If you don't, make sure to check your spam. And you can also log into the help desk there to see as well right there. But any issues at all, definitely we're here to help. So just let us know. And if there's like any features that you think would be useful, like, you know, if you're thinking, man, it'd be really useful if I had this in the analysis report, or if I had that, or if I could do this or that, let us know. There's a handful of features that we're already working on. Some could be out as early as within the next week or so. And when those are released, we'll make an announcement on that, as well as if they need like some extra walkthroughs or training, we'll do that as time comes as well as next week we'll basically talk more about the rule sets and more about like if you want to manage your own ads or, you know, other ads, how to go about all that as well. So with that, guys, any questions, any additional training that you guys think would be useful outside of what I said was coming, you know, let us know. And if not, again, I look forward to seeing you guys next week. We'll have our next call at the same time, so it's Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And with that, have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you guys later. Take care.